Oil has been Russia's both bread maker and the curse at the same time for the last 70 years or so. Russia's been swimming in petrodollars, exporting oil all over the world, but Russia's best oil customer was Europe. Well, it makes perfect sense. Europe is right next door. It borders Russia, and it's always has a huge demand for oil, and it has money to pay. Russia's best and biggest oil customer. Not too long ago, Russian economic future seemed bright, I mean rich, due to knowing that Russia will be supplying oil to Europe for a long, long time. But it all changed overnight. On February 24th, 2022, one Russian man decided that he was Russia's absolute ruler and he could invade neighboring countries at will. After all, he had the economic power of Russian oil behind him. That decision changed Russian future. The future of the entire country, because with the first missile flying into Ukraine's territory, Russia lost a great deal of its oil exports, future oil exports. You know, of course, on February 24th, 2022, Russian oil still kept on flowing through the pipelines and still was being shipped by oil tankers. But the fate of Russian oil was decided right then. Today is the day number 559 of the war that Russia's been waging on Ukraine, and Russian oil industry is not doing well. It's collapsing. In this stream, and this is number 2 in the series of that I called Russian Oil is Cursed. So in this stream, I will tell you how Russia's oil industry is doing right now, what are the problems, and what future will bring to Russia's oil industry. Howdy everyone, my name is Konstantin and welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. What you will not find on this channel is propaganda, BS, and lies. What you will find instead, truth, common sense, and logic, and some emotions, because I am a human being. For the first 30 minutes or so, I'll be delivering a message, and today's message is oily for the second day in a row. After the message, I invite everyone to join, go into the live stream chat where we converse and I answer questions. I'd love that very much, so let's start. I'm going to tell you today of 4 things, basically. I've decided to divide my message into 4 logical parts. The first part, what happened in 2022. The second part, what happened in the first half of 2023. The third part is, what is the current situation with oil extraction in Russia? And number 4, what is the future of Russian oil industry? Once Russia's biggest and best and fattest bread maker. And let's jump into the message. So, what happened in 2022? Russia attacked Ukraine. February 24th, 2022. I remember the day, and I think I'll be remembering it for the rest of my life. Not a good day. Not for Ukraine and not for Russia. For me, terrible day. But not much was happening then in terms of Russian oil exports. The Western countries started imposing economic sanctions upon Russian companies instantly on the day 2 of the invasion. And Russian oil companies also became the subject of such sanctions. The Western company that supplied Russian oil companies with technologies, most of those companies left. I think they left as soon as they could. It's just some could leave earlier and some left later due to some reasons. It's still not easy to leave Russia because, sometimes Russian government doesn't let you go. So there were some big oil companies, partners of Western oil companies, partners of Russian oil companies. They were partners in different projects of extraction, of developing oil fields, and they left. The Japanese left, the American left. Well, what was very important is the technology that is the heart of oil extraction, was leaving Russia, In 2022, for the first time, I learned that Russia did not have any technologies in the field of oil extraction, oil industry. Searching for new oil fields, drilling techniques, extraction, etc., all Western technologies. And they were gone, basically just like that, within weeks, perhaps months, at least most of them. But what remained intact was the exports. The exports was Russia kept on selling oil, exporting oil to existing customers using existing contracts, long-term contracts. It remained unchanged for the most part. First, there was a panic in the global markets. Remember how much you were paying at gas stations in March of 2022? I think you remember. But then things kind of calmed down, and the prices for gasoline, for oil, decreased, They were more or less stable in the second part of 2022, and Russia was selling oil like crazy, breaking financial records. The price went up still. And the West decided to put a stop on that. In the summer of 2022, Europe decided to impose new sanctions upon Russia. It was forbidden to buy Russian oil for European countries starting December 6, 2022. And the price cap of $60 per barrel was introduced soon after, meaning that Russia could not sell its oil at higher than $60 per barrel, no matter what the market price was. The way that the sanctions were forced, this price cap was forced upon, was through the companies that shipped and insured Russian oil. They basically, if they helped Russia to ship oil at price higher than 60, then they would be placed upon such sanctions themselves. And no one in the Western world likes that. So basically that limited Russia's oil exports a great deal. Well, it's a very smart move, I think, because it kept global oil markets relatively stable, okay? Imagine what would happen if Russian oil would disappear. Russia is a huge exporter of oil. Imagine if it disappears all at once. There's panic and market collapse, prices, shooting through the roof. It didn't happen because Russia is still supplying, but at 60, sometimes it supplies even for lower than 60. So that is keeping the markets happy, so to speak. Nevertheless, Russia stockpiled tons of money. It profited from oil trade in 2022. That in turn helped Russian economy to stay afloat for some time. It starts sinking just about now. It started sinking in the summer, but before summer, it survived due to large, also including one of the reasons it survived was the oil export money came in 2022. So that's how Russian government could increase military spendings and bail out banks and so forth. So the sanctions started working in 2022. What happened in the first half of 2023? After the big sanctions were put in effect, Russia started supplying less and less oil. Russian oil exports started to decline. It became much more difficult to supply Russian oil, okay? Imagine this. Majority of Russian oil had been going, like I said, to Europe, the best customer. And then all of a sudden, Europe could not buy Russian oil anymore. So therefore, Russia desperately needed new customers anywhere, I know, throughout the world. So the two countries kind of popped up on the surface, China and India. And they became two major importers of Russian oil. But just look at the world's map. Where Russia is, where is Europe, and there are pipelines going straight to Europe. It's the cheapest way to supply oil through pipeline. And look at China and India, where they are located, and how to move Russian oil, to ship Russian oil from Russia into India or China. That's much more difficult. That's much more complicated, much longer, and much more expensive. There are so many much more. So the decline, basically, first half of 2023, the decline in quantity, decline in prices, and decline, let's say, in the future expectations. All of a sudden, like I said, India and China became Russia's biggest customers, and Europe stopped being a customer at all. An interesting thing happened. Both India and China, as soon as remained the only customers, they immediately started blackmailing Russia by demanding huge discounts for oil, because without China and India, Russia couldn't sell to anyone, pretty much, you know. There were some Egyptians buying oil here and there, some other countries mixing it with different oils, buying it cheap, selling it, you know, more at more, but not much. It was all minor compared to what Russia had in the past for Europe, you know, and you know, compared to what the demand for oil was in China and in India. So a large number of oil traders, Russian oil traders, popped up all over the world. Those small companies affiliated with big Russian oil extractors, oil companies, families, friends, you know, they started profiteering of this situation. Basically, the scheme is very simple. Russia sells oil at 60, even greater discount, but not to the customer, the end customer, because end customer doesn't want to do anything with Russia, Russian banks, you know, Russian oil companies, but let's say to a small trader. And small trader resells it at 70, you know, buying at 60, immediately turns around and resells it at 70 to, let's say, an Indian company, or at 70 to another company, and then at 75 to the end customers, things like that. Those just a way of corruption, part of a Russian corruption system. And those traders, of course, they're friends or family of the government officials, you know, the oil people and so forth. So they were not paying any taxes to Russian budget. And Russian companies, oil producers, they were paying very little taxes because it nearly cost as much to extract oil and deliver it to the border than to sell it at 60, you know. Russian budget started losing steadily and greatly on tax revenues, oil tax revenues. Obviously, it was expected. At least by some of us. It was expected by me, made many streams about that. It was obvious, okay? I saw it coming. The discounted oil was trading as low as $37 per barrel to Chinese companies. And the price of mid-40s was not unheard of. It was actually very common. That what kind of discounts the Chinese and the Indians were just blackmailing out of Russians. And let's talk about what is the current situation with oil exports. India and China remain the biggest importers, the biggest buyers of Russian oil. Let's talk about China right now. China has been reducing imports from Russia. Russian oil, despite the fact that it's hugely discounted, it's really hard to tell at what prices Russia is selling oil to China right now. Russian government releases information here and there of volume of trade between China and Russia, but it does not release the sales prices. There's one major reason behind constant reducing of imports of Russian oil into China in the last few months. That's Iran. Iran has plenty of its own oil, and despite international sanctions, it's sanctioned as same as Russia, but only Russia is sanctioned much more. Okay, Russia is the most sanctioned country in the history of humankind. So despite all these international sanctions placed upon Iran, it still exports oil. It's called black export. It, bypasses this international monitoring, so to speak. So, and if you look at the map, Iran is not too far from China and right next to India. So, hey, much closer than Russia. It's much easier to extract oil because it's different kind of oil. It's much higher quality than Russian oil, and it's much easier to transport it, to ship it. Iran is, imagine this. Look at the map. There are two major ports, one in the Baltics and the north, the Sea of the Baltics, and one in the Black Sea in the south. And that's pretty much it. Russia does not have any more seaports in the western part of Russia. So look how long the ships should sail, the tankers should sail to get to China or India. And look where Iran is, and you will get your answer. So Iran has been successfully squeezing Russian oil exporters out of China. And I remind you, Putin claimed that Iran is Russia's friend. But us, the Russians living in exile, we say that if Russia has friends like Iran, then really Russia does not need any enemies. Iran is enough. On top of that, China has been decreasing overall consumption of oil due to economic decline. Therefore, the demand for oil in general it's been decreasing. So it doesn't really look very good in perspective for the Russian oil exporters, Russian oil companies. Now let's talk about India. There are two factors that are influencing Russian oil trade with India. The first is not much can be done about it. Yeah, it's actually a factor in Chinese trade as well. Russia is simply extracting less in the last few months. And the second, Indian buyers cannot pay in the US dollars because the Western banks simply would not allow such transactions. So the Indian companies buying Russian oil, they pay in Russians in rupees, the local currency. In Russia, cannot do anything with rupees. The rupees, the financial market for rupees is very regulated. over-regulated in India. India doesn't like when rupees are traded outside India. So no one takes rupees except for India. And Russia does not buy much from Indians. So rupees are just sitting in bank accounts like deadweight, like paper. And basically Russia's been supplying oil to India for free. Good for India, bad for Russia, you know. General for everyone, both Russia and China, a very significant event for Russian oil trade happened not too long ago, about 6 weeks. Russia's largest, most important Black Sea oil port, Novorossiysk, was attacked by Ukrainian sea drone, unmanned sea drone. That had a huge effect on oil trade. Oil tankers simply stopped coming to Novorossiysk. Too dangerous. Situation in the Black Sea is not stable. Military vehicles, military ships operating there. You know, war going on. So, just to give you an example, before this attack happened, 5 large tankers, because Novorossiysk is a deep sea port, 5 large tankers would come to Novorossiysk every week, load up oil and sail out. Right now, since the attack happened, 1 tanker a week. The trade has been reduced significantly, physically, you know, and that influenced the trade, Russian oil trade overall. Insurers increased their prices immediately, and it became even more complicated and even more costly for Russia to sell oil to both India and China. So Russian sea oil trade traffic has recently greatly decreased. Now, let's move on to what's currently going on with the extraction in Russia. Is Russia extracting the same amount of oil it used to in the past? Perhaps more. Perhaps it wants to make up for this lost revenues. The price cap of $60, you know, makes sense. You sell it for less, but you extract more and sell more. Okay, so let's check it out. Well, I have a surprise for you. Russia has been cutting down the extraction of oil. The cuts this summer, 2 cuts, not even in the summer, in the last 2 months, huge. 500,000 barrels per day, and next month, 300,000 barrels per day less oil extracted. So combined, just in the last 2 months, minus 800,000 barrels per day of oil extracted and sold. Less oil, less money made. The official Russian government story of this decline in extraction is very simple and very logical. Hey, it's all agreed with OPEC organization, you know, the oil producers. They try to keep markets stable. They don't want the price of oil to drop so low, so they cut into extraction. And Russia does the same thing. That's a lie. Russian government lies. It always does. And it lies again. The thing is, Russia did not need to cut so much of extraction. Okay? No such number was required by OPEC for Russia. Russia went overboard, so to speak. Why? Let's look at the details, and they will let us see the big picture. The real story is that Russian oil companies have been cutting their oil production steadily for some time now. For the past year, 12 months, you know, after the start of the war, after all the sanctions were implied, and listen to this, this is important, when the Western companies pulled out, taking their technologies with them away, Russian companies have not used any new oil fields. What they're doing is they've been drilling new wells and lots of them, but, and again, this is important, they've only drilled in the old oil fields. Those oil fields that were developed in the old days of the USSR, the ones like Samatlor and the others, I talked about them in the previous stream. The key point here is cost. They are extracting oil in the old developed oil fields because it's less costly than drilling and developing the new ones. We don't know exactly how much oil Russia is extracting right now, for one simple reason. This February, new law was created that allows Russian government to hide oil extraction numbers. In April, Russian statistics agency Rostov stopped disclosing oil extraction information, data. Now, why would that be? Oil extraction data is not a military secret. It's not new missile or it's not new submarine. It's not military technology. In the past, it was widely available for anyone to see. Hey, Rostov shares the statistics and everything, right? It's supposed to. It's a public. It's a Russian government. It's a government's agency responsible for providing public information for everything, right? What's going on in Russia. So why now they start hiding, they stop disclosing this information? The only reason comes to my mind, the only logical reason. The information tells of a decline in the industry, and decline is so large that the public would understand that the Russian economy that's been addicted to oil exports is nearing very rough times. This data shows us that everything is not going according to the plan. And I think Russian government motto these days is the less they know, the fewer questions they ask. So they simply stopped telling us of how much oil Russia extracts. It's secret. But, thank goodness there's inside information and we can get our hands on it. Well, rumors, of course, but, So the insiders say that a huge decline of extraction, but the Ministry of Energy is trying to put a good mask on it. It's acting if Russia is cutting volume of oil extracted as a part of the decision to help OPEC to stabilize global oil supply and demand. Well, like I said, it's a lie. And the real numbers are even worse than 800,000 barrels per day. Okay, and the future for oil extraction is actually fairly bleak. And now let's talk about the future. Like I said, it's bleak. The future is very bleak. Perhaps it's even dark, not bleak. And there are three reasons for that. The first reason is technology, second reason is cost, and the third reason is demand. The reason number one, Russia simply does not have any domestic technology for oil drilling. Like I said, the Western companies left and surprise, surprise, took everything that they were helping the Russian companies with away with them. Right now, Russian companies are drilling, in Russia it's called the simple way of drilling. Basically, it's a 70-year-old technology used in the USSR when there simply was no technology available anywhere, okay? So you could say that the Russians are using 70-year-old technology. And what are the options for the Russians right now? Not too many, because basically the only option is to buy from the Chinese. But Chinese do not possess own oil drilling, oil extracting technology, because they simply are not That's not something that they have and extract. Therefore, they've never developed this technology. What they can do and are doing right now is somehow they get their hands on some pieces of equipment and tech from the West, and they do back engineering. And they create their own stuff, and then they sell it to Russians. According to the insiders, remember I said I have some inside information, some of that technology makes it to Russia. They're re-engineered and made by the Chinese, but it's crap. Very few things Russian oil companies can get of the real Western stuff, but dime a dozen, not dime a dozen, very, very, very little. Because it takes a very complicated procedure to buy in the West, to import in China, then perhaps to Kazakhstan, and, just it's a very, very complicated and very risky logistical way. And obviously Russians will not be developing own technology. Because for one simple reason, there was very good rich time. There was a rain of money in Russia, not too long ago, for about 15 years. And Russian oil companies did not take any money and did not invest into research and technology, okay? They didn't in the rich times, they're not going to do it now. Even if they wanted to, and they probably don't, they can't, because they cannot borrow money anywhere, okay? International financial markets are simply off limits for Russian oil companies, and they cannot borrow money inside Russia, because banks will not lend anything long term, and they simply don't have any more profits. They're empty. There will be no domestic technology developed in Russia. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is cost. Remember I told you about the inside? Well, according to the inside, right now, there are 30% of all oil fields are old and relatively accessible with relatively small extracting costs, okay? Better oil closer to the surface, better accessible oil fields, 30% of the entire Russian oil deposits. 70% is difficult to get oil. Need to be developed new oil fields, or oil fields they need to drill a great deal more in the oil inaccessible oil fields or less accessible, and therefore the oil that they extract costs more, not as profitable. Remember these numbers, 30 and 70. Now, in the good times, in 2019, Russia's Ministry of Energy made a presentation saying that at the current rate of extraction, that's 2019, pre-COVID, pre-war, by 2035, it was predicted, again, by Ministry of Energy of Russia, that Russian oil extraction would decline by 40%, again, by 2035. And those 40% were for the first type of oil. Easy to get, less expensive to extract, So basically, Russian oil companies in the last 12 months have intensified oil extraction, and they're exhausting all developed deposit fields without investing anything into opening new fields, into drilling the new fields and so forth. Russian oil companies are acting as if there is no tomorrow. And most likely to them, there is no tomorrow. The experts are saying right now that Russian oil extraction will fall by 40%, not by 2035, but in 2 years, if the current rate of extraction stays on. In 2 years, physically, Russian oil extraction, will be reduced by 40%. Now, that's a pretty scary number for both Russian oil companies and Russian Ministry of Energy, and for Russian Ministry of Finance, and for Russia's central bank, and for Russian president, for everyone who hangs to their power, and the power is based on money. They can pay people off, and they can buy loyalty with money. Soon that money will be dried up, literally. Not gonna happen. Nothing's gonna change. Nothing's gonna change because, again, in order to lower the costs, the oil companies, Russian oil companies, they need, number one, to invent new technologies, research and discover new technologies that make oil extraction cheaper, more effective. Like we said, they're not going to do that. And the second, they need to invest to discover new oil fields. The fields like Samatlor, with quality oil very close to the surface. They're not doing it. Again, they weren't doing it in the previous 15 years when they were making fabulous money. Right now, they're not going to be doing it because they simply don't have any money, and, they have no way of getting any money to do that. So that's out of the question. Russian oil will be becoming more and more expensive to extract. Therefore, it's going to be less competitive in the global market. And the reason number 3, and that's probably the biggest reason, is demand. Global demand for Russian oil and for oil in general. So what happened in February of 2022 is actually bigger than we think for the energy business, for the energy markets. I think, in my opinion, what happened was kick in the butt for all people on the planet Earth to speed up the transition into the green energy era. Russian invasion of Ukraine showed what happens when customers depend on one supplier of oil and on one particular way of energy, on oil itself. So I think, I know for sure that many companies and many countries have decided to invest and speed up the research of new technologies. And it's actually quite a few technologies have been promising. I know one Swedish company that drills super deep wells and using the difference in temperature along the wells to actually generate electricity. It's cheaper and it works. Okay. Of course, there's nuclear energy. It's having a comeback. There is solar and wind, the renewables. There's a problem with the renewables, the storing of electricity, the storing of energy. But the research is being done, and sooner or later, I think rather sooner, the storage will be becoming cheaper and more plentiful. And there's hydrogen, and other ways of creating, of delivering energy to humanity. Okay, so demand for oil in general will be decreasing, and demand for Russian oil will be decreasing even more. Because, look, besides the green transition, what happened, the old customers, like European countries, they have found new ways of getting oil from different suppliers. So the market's been reshaped. Russia, such a stupid decision. Russia lost the best customers. Okay, they're not, haven't dried up without oil. They're still getting deliveries, but not from Russia, from somewhere else. And that's like death for Russian oil companies. And the third is the sanctions. Simply put, the sanctions are here to stay. And even when the war with Ukraine stops and the peace deal, some kind of peace deal is negotiated, and I hope and pray that it's going to happen sooner than later, the sanctions are to stay. They're not going to be lifted. Many Russians think, oh, you know what, once the war with Ukraine stops, things will go back to normal. That's delusional. No, they will not. Russia has shot itself in the foot, and it's going to remain that way for a very long time. So there are three major reasons: green transition and overall decline in oil demand, diversification of current markets, and sanctions upon Russia. These three factors will be influencing Russian oil industry for a very long time. Not just influencing, but driving it down. In the beginning, I said that one man changed everything for Russia in February of 2022, last year, including he changed everything for the oil industry. The most lucrative industry, the thing to die for. Other countries would be dying to have Russia's oil, you know. Russia's bread maker, the biggest and fattest bread maker, the foundation that Russian economy has been based upon. And he simply destroyed it. Just like that, by making decision to invade Ukraine. Who is the biggest loser of this? Not the current government. Not Putin himself, not, KGB people, not police, not the ones who arrest the oppositioners, not the ones who torture them in prisons, not the judges who sentence Russians to real prison terms for simply liking anti-war posts on social media. No, not those people. It's the Russian people who are the biggest loser of this whole thing. The government will be gone soon. In weeks, in months, could be a year, could be two, could be a few years, but there is 100% guarantee that Russian government will be gone. And the evil people will perish. Again, perhaps in weeks, perhaps in months, perhaps in years. Some will be put to justice. Some will fall out of the window. Some will be eaten by the system. You know, they help to create the system, but the system will eat them. Some most likely will be killed, and some will simply disappear. But they will all perish sooner or later, and I think sooner. But the Russian folks will stay. They will continue living. Generation after generation. But one thing, they will not have oil. Russian oil has been cursed. In the previous stream, I explained why I think so. It's been cursed for the 70 years, and it's been cursing Russia. But hey, soon Russian oil will simply not be needed anymore. Hopefully, the Russians, and I mean not be needed in the world, and hopefully the Russians will learn from this situation, will learn their lesson, and the future generations of Russians will use this lesson to make Russia shine, to make the country better, to make it right, in the future. Because my generation of Russian people is lost. Let's just hope for the better. Friends, thank you so much. It's been my message for today. I hope you found it interesting. If you have, please like it and help me spread the message. If you don't mind, you can do that by making reposts in the social media accounts. That helps a lot. If you want to buy me a coffee or a tea or become a patron, that'd be nice. Appreciate it. I'd like that very much. Thank you. And I invite everyone to go over to the live stream chat, which I am going to turn on right now. and I will try to answer questions, and I would love to hear your opinions, the feedback. What do you think? The chat's on. Thank you so much. If you're not seeing it, just hit the refresh button like I am doing right now. Yeah. Lots of talking. The chat's not going to be long, for about 20 minutes. This message has been long, you know. Thank you so much, mods. I see Lorna Mommy, Bob S. Who else? Harry, Prince Amir Fazad. Fantastic to see everyone. Thank you, friends, for coming. If you are here for the first time, please know that Inside Russia has the best modes on internet. Lorna, Mommy K, Bob S, Prince Amir Fazad, and Harry Partner. Nightbot sometimes kicks in to help, you know, but Nightbot is tricky. Mommy and Lorna are number one today as usual, and by the way, the usual suspects, thank you for coming back. Thank you so much. Fantastic to see everyone. If you want me to see your message, then please put it in caps and put Inside Russia after that sign, so it just appears highlighted in a large orange box, just like Harry Partner did. Hello, Harry. Eileen, thank you so much for good words. My popcorn stash is increasing, and mine is too. I actually found real popcorn in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, and in one of following streams, I will be bringing it and having it with you. So how about that? Because my popcorn virtual stash is also growing a great deal. Pinda, howdy, howdy. Thank you so much for good words. HS Knox, first time I see, new face, welcome. Bob S, thank you so much. Leitmotiv for me from Maryland, thank you for good words. Isma, hello. Koshkin Dom, Janice Burgess, howdy, howdy, friends. Stefan, thank you, thank you. Mr. Kaliskin from Chicago. And Allison Marlowe is back. Great to see you. Thomas says, actually have the same mic and headphones. Use it to record metal vocals. That's good. I like this headphones, monitors, and the mic is great also. Sam K. The fudge. Know what the fudge is today. It's the choice that Russian people made by allowing the government, this kind of government and this kind of leadership to flourish. So thank you so much again. X-Flying Tiger. John and Nikki from Lake Shasta. Thank you so much. You know from here. Hey, Lake Shasta, I know. Thank you, friends. KG1. Saudi and Russia have today agreed to cut daily production until the end of the year. Brent crude now about 90% a barrel. Might help Russia for a while. No. Remember, Russia has a price cap, okay? And even if it sells oil for more than $60 per barrel, most likely that extra money go through to corrupt army of newly minted traders, okay? They're living like there's no tomorrow, and there is no tomorrow for them again. They are just ripping everyone off, keeping the money where they reside in different countries, the United Arab Emirates, Europe, you know, just anywhere they're located. And that money does not benefit Russian budget. And you know what? Thank goodness, because if it did, it would be directed to manufacture more rockets. So who needs that? Saudi and Russia have today agreed to daily production until the end of the year. And this is exactly what I was talking about. Remember, I said in the summertime, Russia did 2 cuts. First cut was in July, 500k barrels per day. And the second cut was in August, 300k per day. 800 all in total. But the thing is, there's a catch. Russia did not need to cut that much. It did because it extracts less and less, okay? It's just making a good face, trying to save its face or whatever, but it's not because they're trying to help OPEC, no. Trust me, they'd love to sell as much as they can right now at this price, but... it's not helping Russia. Russian oil industry is in decline. Again, I want to make it very simple and clear. Gary Black, thank you so much. Thank you. No message, but your message is heard and received and appreciated. Thank you. Faith Russert from Spain, originally from the USA. Howdy. Dan Caldwell, thank you for good words, and YouTube just jumped on you. Dan says, very interesting info today. Well, I'm very glad I tried. I tried my best. Thank you. Lionel, howdy. Great to see you. Come back. Sam K, thank you again. I'm just scanning through the comments and caps. Pamela DiPaolo, thank you so much. I appreciate the good words. Just Terry, you rock, my friend. Corey Carranza, hey, from the US. Glad to see you still safe after all this time. Well, great to see you back. Safe, I don't know how safe, but so far so good. Ferrari guy, well, also long time no see. How long do you think oil infrastructure maintenance can last? And which would be the first to go offline? I'm not an expert in the oil technology, but I think the first ones will be refineries, because you see what happens is imagine a long road. The oil is extracted from the inside Earth. Okay, it's pumped through a pipeline to oil refinery. Somehow it makes it to the oil refinery. And have you ever seen oil refinery? That's like a sci-fi movie, a type of a building. It has like hundreds of different towers, hundreds of different vessels, thousands and thousands of kilometers, miles of pipes, There's just so many like smoke pipes. This thing is crazy. I've been on one. I've seen it. Actually, one of the products that we were supplying, we were building power supply stations, electric stations, so they would supply oil refineries. So those things are huge. And the thing is, the heart of every oil refinery is the processes. The process is technology. There are like hundreds of processes that take crude oil, and at the end you have like gasoline that you can put into your car. It goes through hundreds of chemical reactions of different like cleanings and transformation, and every single one of them is a process. And the processes, it's like basically a technology. They're owned by different companies, and the companies license these technologies, and the companies are Western, okay? So, and they supply their own equipment. I think that is the place where they will start failing first, okay? Like one of the insiders said, they're using 70-year-old technology of drilling. They're drilling simple holes, the wells, and they're using no-tech stuff, low-tech, to actually extract oil. So that stuff does not fail easily, okay? It can keep on working just like it did in the USSR for decades. But, perhaps pumping through, and especially the refining is what the biggest problem is for the current Russian oil industry. And the thing is, if you extract it in the old way, it's too expensive. It's not even worth selling because extraction cost is way too high. That's why the Western companies come in and they make the oil cheaper by using technologies to make extraction more effective. Okay. Simon, good evening. Howdy. Ferrari guy, I hope I answered your question. Multi-Ducky, good nabend. Faith Russell, thank you again. Trucker Jim, hey, long time no see. I think you were still a usual suspect when, even before the war, when I was, walking around Moscow and showing you the good places, I remember you well. Thank you, Jim. Thanks for being of Inside Russia, part of the Inside Russia community. And Dan Caldwell, thank you so much for your support. It's huge. I thought your info about the shipping in the Black Sea was interesting. How affected it's been since that drone strike might be worth an entire stream talking about the consequences and if Russians notice it. Then, I don't have much more to say than I already said on this stream. I don't know where to investigate further. There was an attack, a successful attack. One of the military ships was half sank. Of course, Russians came out and said, well, nothing happened. We deflected the attack. Everything's perfect. And then there were pictures of a ship half sank. Okay. It was either military ship or oil tanker. I don't remember. Okay. But it was a ship. And what happened is the Black Sea, and then there was another attack on the Kerch Bridge. Okay. And then the entire area of the Black Sea became much more risky for the shippers. And they simply stopped sending tankers to Novorossiysk. Plain and simple. Too risky. And it's too expensive because insurers don't want to insure the ships going in there. And just like that, the Black Sea is off the limits for the Russian oil companies. And for that matter, what's even worse, and it's not just Russian oil is supplied there. It's oil from Kazakhstan, and it's oil that is extracted by the Western companies that own oil fields in Kazakhstan, okay? And it's affecting their trade too, and they're sending their oil to China, shipping it by Black Sea and, Suez Canal, the Mediterranean down south, So that's what's going on in Russia. But I just don't really know, like what else to talk about. Nation Demon, thank you so much for gifting membership for 5 people. Thank you. There will be a private live stream. Actually, I'd like to announce it's going to be something different. I am going back on the streets of Tashkent for the live stream for sponsors and patrons this coming Saturday. It's going to be a little earlier because I want to catch the light, but for the patrons and the sponsors, please tune in Saturday. I'll give you the time. Again, it's going to be a little earlier than usual streams. And let's do it. I'll show you Tashkent inside out. Koshkin-Don, please, could you explain why India doesn't like rupees to circulate outside India? That I cannot do. I know that both India and China has over-regulated its financial markets. And if Russia has lots of yuans, but the thing is, yuan is okay because yuan is one of the reserve currencies now, and Russia could put it into good use. And the trade between Russia and China is huge. So therefore, Russia can take yuans and send them back to China and buy things for yuans, but it does not buy anything from India. So therefore, Indian rupees, they cannot be sold on a free market in exchange for dollars. And why it happens, I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm not a big an expert on India at all. I don't know very much about the country. I know a thing or two about their currency. That's the way it is. Daniel McInnes, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for your support from Canada. Thank you. Janice Burgess, do you think drone that hit Romania was accidental? After reading about Putin wanting an explanation for their application to the ICC, I wonder. I'm not sure that Romania is applying to the ICC. That's Armenia. I think perhaps I mistyped or something, but that's Armenia applying. Armenia is between Georgia and Iran. It's on a different side of the world. Romania is part of Europe, and Romania by default is a member of International Criminal Court. They're not applying. They've been there for quite some time. And I think that it's been an accident. The drone attack, and it's not a drone attack. The drone fell, okay, as far as I understand. And if it wasn't the accident, I think it would be all over the news, and NATO would be getting together, discussing situation. Remember, a rocket fell in Poland and killed a Polish person. And remember what happened? A big ordeal. And I think if something like that happened in Romania involving Russian rocket or drone, that'd be the same thing. That'd be discussing Article 5 and all of that, So I think it's just, accident. Russia does not want to pick up a fight with NATO. No, it can't even withstand Ukraine. Ukrainian troops have been pushing the counteroffensive. I mean, imagine if NATO joins, what that would be for the Russian army. Stefan Dooling, thank you so much. Welcome to Inside Russia. We have a new sponsor, and thank you. As Spinak, any concrete info how Bitcoin is being used by Russians to trade? Bet the middle class or the rich, being the middle class of the rich. Well, what kind of concrete information you are expecting from me? I do not use Bitcoin. I do not trade in Bitcoin. I know that lots of Russians do that. I know that lots of Russians move their capitals out of Russia by Bitcoin, by way of Bitcoin. And it's both rich and middle class, but the thing is, Russian middle class is tiny, and a lot of people have left Russia from the middle class. So I would say it's more of the rich and definitely the poor people. They do not trade Bitcoin. They don't use it whatsoever. Joe, how much gold does Russia have? 300 to 400 billion. Not sure what billion or what. I think in the range of 3,000 to 4,000 metric tons of gold. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's in that range. I know they've been selling gold to cover the budget deficit of the previous months. George Ruberty from New England. Hello, friend. Hope everything is well. Keep on praying for you. Mark Jenkins. Very depressing message for Russians. Yes and no. You know, I've been thinking. I did 2 streams for 2 days in a row, and I've been thinking about that. If you look in the short run, very depressing. But if you look in the long run, the curse is off. Okay? Russians can wake up and say, hey, let's build our economy from the scratch without oil, without help of oil. The Russians still have lots of resources. They have metals, they have ores, they have so much land suitable for agriculture. They have, you name it, they have it, okay? They need to change the way that they govern themselves. They need to understand how important they are, okay? Because they're regular, small people. We are the people. Once they get the concept, everything's going to be fine in Russia. And, you know, future generations might be laughing about oil, saying, hey, look how stupid were our ancestors to, you know, use it. But the thing is, they need to understand the concept. They need to start taking actions to realize their potential as we are the people. If that doesn't happen, oil will not help. Like, look what's been happening in the past 70 years. Oil's been plentiful. Anything good came out of this freaking oil? Okay? The Cold War? The war with Ukraine? Chechnya? You know, just... So, it depends on which angle you look at it. It could be depressing, but it could be promising. Just not for my generation. Janice, okay, I read the message already. Thank you. Robert Harris, will Russia be buying North Korea's 70-year-old tanks, ships, and planes? It might be, because the North Korean leader is scheduled to visit Russia, visit Putin, and that probably, well, it could be one of the deals they're going to be making in Moscow. X-Flying Tiger, serious question, should some Russian land be sold? I haven't thought of it. It's a good question, you know. Something's going to be done, okay? Perhaps not sold, perhaps leased out or something. Jason Carney is back with a huge bang, and your bang is being heard here in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. Thank you so much. Cheers. Jason, from me and my wife, Natasha, thank you so much for supporting. You're the champion of supporting, and your support has been felt in our family. Thank you. And thanks for the 5 people, the gifts of sponsorships. KG1, thank you also very much. Looks like exports of Russian wheat are at record level this year. No, my friend. That's probably another stream I should be making about. I'm going to be wrapping this up for now. Look, from what I understand, Russia is having a very good year for the harvest of wheat. But the question is where it's going to be and how it's going to be exporting this wheat. The wheat deal is off. You can forget about that. It's been scratched, you know. But to the world, it's not a big deal anymore. To Russia, it's much bigger deal. Okay. Again, I'm not discussing wheat. I'm discussing oil right now. But keep on tuning in. I know you're always here. So we will talk about wheat more, because it's also important. What do you know about Valery Solovey? Chaos is asking. He said that Prigozhin might be alive. Valery Solovey rings a bell, but you know what? There will be million different conspiracy theories about Prigozhin. Prigozhin cannot be alive for one simple reason. He humiliated Putin publicly. He spat in his face. He led and created the most successful mutiny Russia has ever seen. Putin came out addressing the nation, begging for help of the Russians. He looked small, he looked stressed, he looked weak. That's something he will not ever forget, and he wouldn't forgive Prigozhin, and he didn't. I mean, just think about it. Even if Prigozhin survived somehow, he'd still be dead sooner or later. Sooner, as it turned out to be. White Lightning, thank you. Why can't Russia just get assistance from China to drill the new oil fields? China doesn't have technology. They could let China get half of what they find. China cannot do that. They don't have technology. China doesn't have oil. They don't drill. Okay, the best they can do is to buy in the West and then resell to Russians, or to buy in the West or to steal the technology, re-engineer, build their own knockoff and sell it to Russians, but it's not the same quality. So, folks, thank you so much. I would like to wrap it up for today. Thank you. Prigozhin is the new Elvis. I don't know, Keith, why? Why? Dave Strains, yes, Jason Carney is the rock star, and he is a rock star in general of this channel, not just today. Okay. Folks, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for giving me a chance. It's my honor and my pleasure to have you here. And I finish live streams with prayer, and I invite everyone to pray along with me. And I'm inviting everyone right now. If you're religious, please join me. If you're not, please join me also. You can say that you can call it different names if you wish. You can call it sending good vibes to people, sending good wishes, but it's the same thing anyway. So please join me in prayer, and let's do it. Dear Lord Jesus Christ, thank you so much for giving us all this day. Thank you for putting food on our tables. Thank you for giving roofs over our heads. Thank you for surrounding us with people who we love and who love us. Dear Lord, please give us wisdom to keep the skies above our children's heads peaceful, and raise our children the way that when they become adults, they will make this world a better place. They will never engage in any kind of war, in any wars. Dear Lord, please, for now, keep our children safe and healthy, and please help stop the bloodshed in Ukraine as soon as possible. Reach out and touch the hearts of those people who are responsible and capable. Fill their hearts with love, empathy, sympathy. Make the hearts softer. Please do whatever is necessary for them to open their eyes and see what they've done. Please open their eyes so they will get terrified and will make the decision to stop the bloodshed as soon as possible. Please help all the Ukrainians who have been suffering and who have suffered from this terrible disaster, who have been affected. Answer their prayers and make their wishes come true. Send angels to the Ukrainians so the angels keep people away from harm's way. Dear Lord, please help my country, Russia, assemble the heavenly army of the strongest angels with the sharpest swords, led by Saint Michael, and send them as avalanche to this earth to get rid of the demons, to roll over the demons that have hijacked my country. Please have angels run it, have them make Russia peaceful again, respected, respectful, loved, and loving. Please help everyone who is traveling. Send them safe travels. Please help everyone who's seeking for asylum, running away from the devil. Help all the Ukrainians who are suffering due to the strikes of Russian rockets. Please help those who are helping Ukrainians opening their wallets, hearts, doors. God bless them. Dear Lord, please help all the hungry ones, the homeless, the jobless, the addicted, the depressed, the sick, the ones who are struggling with their faith, the ones who are not feeling about themselves, the ones who are betrayed by other people. Please send love to the hearts of those people in that situation. Surround them with your warmth. Send them angels to help, and make them feel your love. So these people will feel better about themselves and about their lives. They will get up from their knees, and they will have a chance to lead a happy, long life, healthy life. Thank you so much for bringing us into this community, allowing us to create this community. Thank you for allowing us to pray together. Please help everyone who's praying along with me, and right now we're simply watching us pray. Make everyone's wish come true and hear and answer everyone's prayer, please. Dear Lord, I'd like to ask you to help a few people who really need your help. They are a 10-year-old boy, Sam from Kiev, Leslie Fleming's daughter, Boss Salmon, Jay Spike, Jason Corner, Janice Stevenson, Ann Larson, her family and daughter Hannah, Liz Dumbrell and her relatives, White Lightning, Darla, George Ruberty, Dave Strains, Pam, Frank in Texas, Janine, Gloria Roberts, Vasilin Lubomirov, Heather, Yelena, Natalia, Jake, Michael, Oля, Dasha, Sky, Bonnie, Svetlana, Richard Burris, Angelic at Life, Randolph, Rafaela From, Harry's family, Alice and Dave Moyers, Mr. Dean Spooner, his church called Our Savior Lutheran Church, Grace, Karen from Maine, Lori Miles' husband, EMS paramedic, Jen Allen, David Porter, his family, and everyone who is in Chernovtsi, Ukraine, Joan Lee McMahon, Meta Spencer, Pamela J., and Karin Visser, and Stefan from Sweden. And also please help Taylor Fleming. Please help all the children from Ukraine who have been affected by this terrible tragedy, and all the children who are not feeling well, please send them recovery. Dear Lord, thank you so very much. Amen. My friends, thank you. Thank you for coming again. It is my honor to have you. Thank you. You give me hope. You give me energy. You give me motivation to move forward. These live streams are definitely the best part of my days. I will come back tomorrow with another message. Please keep on tuning in and tune in tomorrow. Before I sign off, I would like to ask you to say along with me the usual. Carthago delenda est.